Marta took a step back, her face pale. This can't be real, she whispered, her voice faltering. I couldn't believe what I was seeing either. Every part of my mind screamed for us to run. Clara always considered herself an experienced traveler. Her job took her from city to city, week after week, and Airbnbs had become her second home. Each new stay was just another point on the map, and she was rarely impressed by the places she found, until one reservation changed everything. She had just arrived in a small town in the countryside, surrounded by hills and dense forests. The Airbnb was a charming wooden cabin, isolated, with a stunning view of the surrounding forest. Clara was exhausted after a long day of meetings, and although the place was more secluded than she preferred, it seemed perfect for a restful night. Shortly after going to bed, a strong smell of smoke began to invade the room. Clara got up immediately, worried. She ran through the house, checking if something was on fire, but found nothing. No trace of visible smoke. Yet the smell was unmistakable, like burning wood, dense and suffocating. She opened the windows, trying to ventilate the room, but the smell only seemed to worsen. Then the smoke detectors began to go off, echoing through the house with their sharp alarms. Clara rushed to turn them off, her heart racing, but nothing was burning. It was as if the house was warning her about something she couldn't see. The night was a nightmare. The smell of smoke lingered, the alarm went off every hour, and Clara barely slept. She checked everything again and again, unable to find any source for the smell. The next morning, exhausted and disturbed, Clara tried to convince herself it was a technical issue, maybe something wrong with the house's system. She messaged the host, who responded casually, saying nothing like that had ever happened before. He suggested it could be a smoke detector malfunction and said he'd have someone check it out. After another exhausting day, Clara was nervous, but decided to ignore the events of the previous night and try to sleep. She left the bedroom window open just in case the smoke smell returned, hoping to air out the room faster. For a while, everything was calm. The gentle rustling of leaves in the wind almost made her believe the night would be peaceful. Then, in the middle of the night, something woke her up. It wasn't the alarm, nor the smell of smoke. It was a strange sound, like a distant, muffled scream carried by the wind. Confused and still groggy, Clara got up and went to the window, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. In the middle of the forest, between the trees, there was a woman. But something was horribly wrong. The woman was on fire, her body entirely engulfed in flames. Clara couldn't believe what she was seeing. There were intense flames, yet the woman didn't move, didn't try to escape. She just stood there screaming, but completely still. Clara felt a wave of inexplicable terror, but her instinct was to try and help. She grabbed her phone, threw a jacket over her pajamas, and ran out of the cabin, the woman's screams still echoing in her mind. But as soon as she stepped outside, something changed. She approached the forest, trying to call out to the woman, asking her to come closer. But as Clara got nearer, she realized something even more terrifying. The woman wasn't touching the ground. She was floating a few inches above the earth. The flames danced around her but didn't consume her body. And as Clara got closer, she saw the most disturbing thing of all. The woman had no face. Where there should have been features, there was only a dark, smooth surface, without eyes, mouth, or nose. Just a deep, hollow void. Clara stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. Suddenly, Clara smelled the same strong smell of smoke from the night before. She ran back into the house, locking the door behind her. Her mind tried to process what she had just seen, but nothing made sense. She gathered her courage, packed her things, and left without looking back. Upon reaching the nearest town, she stayed in a hotel to recover from the shock and prepare herself for the meeting she had the next day. Despite being shaken to her core, she managed to pull herself together, convincing herself that she was safe. Far from whatever it was that had haunted her, she tried to forget the bizarre experience, but it wasn't easy. The fear stayed with her every day. The screams and the smell of that smoke came back to her mind repeatedly, her greatest fear being that she would find herself in a new place and have to relive the nightmare. But after some time traveling to new places, Though she now preferred hotels, nothing happened again. Eventually, she convinced herself that there had been something terribly wrong with that place, though she couldn't quite explain what it could have been. It was supposed to be a simple getaway. My wife Marta and I decided to get away from the city for a while and rented an Airbnb in a remote rural area. The place was an old farmhouse surrounded by dense forest and vast open fields. The host, very friendly, recommended exploring the surroundings, mentioning there were trails and perfect spots for relaxing walks. We arrived late in the afternoon, with golden sunlight spreading over the property, giving the place a cozy atmosphere. After unpacking and settling in, we decided that a light walk would be a good idea before dinner. The fresh air, birdsong, and tranquility of the place made us forget the problems of the city. We walked along the marked trails, surrounded by ancient trees and a silence that only the countryside could provide. The path led us to a clearing. From a distance, something in the middle of that clearing caught our attention. Beneath a large tree, there was something hanging. As we got closer, the feeling of discomfort began to grow. Marta stopped, her eyes wide, unable to believe what we were seeing. Beneath the tree, hanging from a low branch, was a figure. It looked like a body, but it was strange. Dressed in old-fashioned clothes, its legs swayed gently with the wind, as if held by an invisible force. The sight was terrifying. There was no rope, just a body suspended. Its pale, thin legs swung in a grotesque way, and the most disturbing thing, we couldn't see the face. The head was completely obscured by the shadows of the leaves and trunk. Everything around that tree seemed darker, as if the light had been drained from that part of the field. Marta took a step back, her face pale. This can't be real," she whispered, her voice faltering. I couldn't believe what I was seeing either. Every part of my mind screamed for us to run, to get away as quickly as possible. But something kept me frozen for a few more seconds, staring at that figure, trying to comprehend what was happening. Suddenly, a low sound, like a whisper, came from the surrounding trees. There was no wind, but the leaves began to rustle softly, and the body hanging from the tree moved more abruptly, as if something was swinging it. We didn't know if this was a nightmare vision or something worse, but we knew we shouldn't be there. Without another word, Marta and I ran back to the house, our hearts racing. The sound of the leaves and that distant whisper seemed to follow us as we ran along the trail. When we reached the house, we locked all the doors and windows, as if that could protect us from what we had witnessed. We spent the rest of the night in silence, too scared to return to that clearing or tell the host what we had seen. Deep down, we knew there wouldn't be a rational explanation for it. The next day, we packed our bags and left without looking back. Even today, whenever Marta and I talk about that trip, we try to find an explanation. But the image of that figure hanging, with its legs swaying in the wind, continues to haunt us. Whatever it was waiting silently in the shadow of that tree.